Penn State Wrestling has 9 legitimate NCAA title contenders. Last year they had 6 finalists. Maybe this time around they can get even more.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling. Thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. The #1 daily Penn State sports podcast out there. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show. Special guest returning, that is Nate Cobler over on the other side, Center Daily Times reporter covering Penn State wrestling for 9 years. And we're going to talk about how many champions, individual champions, should Penn State wrestling expect, and what is the likelihood? We're going to group them in tiers of how likely they are to win an NCAA title. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Appreciate the support on this show. Before we move any further, if you're not already, become an everydayer, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast to stay up to date with these conversations around Penn State wrestling. Of course, let us know your thoughts down in the comment section, your predictions for Penn State's champions, and that's what we're going to do here. So, Nate, Penn State, I think, has 9 national title contenders. Now, how likely they are is the difference. Braeden Davis, I think he can get on the podium, right? And if he upsets Lucas Bird, I suppose anything's possible, right? But that's the giant that stands in his way. But Luke Lilledahl, Beau Bartlett, Shayne Van Ness, Tyler Kasak, Mitchell Mesenbrink, Carter Starocci, Levi Haines, don't want to skip over him, Carter Starocci, Josh Barr, and Greg Kerkvliet all are NCAA title contenders, but in some regard, how likely they are versus not. I think that Penn State can get 5 to the 6 again to the finals, and then it's just a matter of how many actually win. How many do you think are realistically do get to the finals here? Because I think 5 or 6 is attainable once again.
Yeah, I mean, when I first kind of got a glimpse of the brackets and obviously seeding and everything else, the way it has all fallen, it gives the potential there for that 6 without a doubt. When you got, 3, 4 number 1 seeds, you got several number 2 seeds, so obviously when you're those rankings, you have the easiest paths, so to speak. So, but you're also getting the best of those guys that you're wrestling against because they want to be the ones to say, hey, look, I slayed the Goliath. I took out the number 1 or the number 2 seed, whatever. So I think the 6 is not out of the realm of possibility. But like you said, is it possible for them to have 9 guys in the finals? Yeah, absolutely. If everything follows suit. Me personally, I hope that doesn't happen because that's going to be a lot of writing. But hey, it is what it is, and that's part of the details and part of the job. But it's one of those things where things have to align. Guys have to stay focused, one match at a time, one round at a time, because one little slip up that could end the run there. So yeah, I would probably be in agreement with you with 6, 6, maybe 7. You were saying about, maybe put them in tiers and this, that, and another thing. It'll be interesting to see kind of the tiers and how they line up, what your thoughts are, what my thoughts are, things like that. And a lot of that also comes down to health too. So we'll kind of see how that pans out.
Well, let's start with the most likely, obviously, and then get to Braeden Davis is going to be at the tail end of this conversation just because he does have Lucas Bird standing in his way. But as an 8, and then Braxton Brown that he's got to go through. But the overall, hey, he's my odds-on favorite. He's the clear-cut champion. Mitchell Mesenbrink is going to immediately come to mind for most. I'd put Tyler Kasak in this category. The category of it would be shocking to me if they do not win an NCAA title. Mitchell Mesenbrink and Tyler Kasak go into this category for me.
Yeah, and I don't see a disagreement there because those two have been, kind of head and shoulders, for all year. Definitely Mitchell, obviously for most of the year, for all of the year. Tyler, it wasn't until when he beat Ja'Cory Teamer in the Iowa Duel there, January 31st in the BJC, is kind of when he maybe took another step, and now he's above everybody else. Granted, the Big Ten is the Big Ten, and it's the SEC of college wrestling, you could say. So to see those guys go through and pull off what they pulled off to win Big Ten titles, Kasak's first, Mitchell's second consecutive. I don't see how, again, barring injuries, barring some freak accident or, God forbid, concussion knocks a guy out, whatever. you know, which in Kasak's case,
losing on a personal accord that he just got beat.
Correct. Yes. So I think you're pretty much dead on with those two guys, because, you know, the other couple guys that we were going to talk about here, there's some other guys in their weight classes that are, you know, that'll have some guys there that could possibly beat them.
Well, I know what everyone's going to immediately respond with. Where's Carter Starocci? Where's Levi Haines? Why aren't they the odds-on favorite? Well, because their weight classes are still difficult. Well, it's very top-heavy, right? And I want to start with Carter Starocci because continue with Carter Starocci because he's going after his 5th NCAA championship. Do I believe he's the favorite? Yes. Do I believe he is as strong of a favorite as Mitchell Mesenbrink and Tyler Kasak? Part of that has to do with 157 and 165 aren't as strong as 184 and 174 respectively in any of these other classes. So that has to do with it, is that Mitchell Mesenbrink and Tyler Kasak are just so far ahead of the competition that there's not as much of a chance for them to be upset. But Carter Starocci, he's going to have to go through, and I think he's better than Dustin Plott, but he's still got to get through him. That's an NCAA runner-up from a season ago. You still have to get through Kakaisen again. They met in the NWCA All-Star Classic. That went down to sudden victory, and that was a tight scramble. Starocci is good enough to win when the margin of error is that thin, but still, Kakaisen's not far behind. And Starocci's not too much further ahead as he was in years past. So I'm not saying that I doubt Starocci. I still think Kakaisen and honestly Max McAnally deserves a little more credit than what they're getting here.
Yeah, and that's what I was just kind of going to say about was Max McAnally, because he was the only guy to take Carter down this year, and it came at the very, very last event of the year, next to the last event of the year in the Big Ten championships. But for him to go out and do what he did. You know, I talked earlier last week with Jed Donahue, and I said, you know, with McAnally, he was a redshirt freshman who didn't seem to kind of get lost in the aura or kind of, in a lack of terms, get awestruck by the terms of Carter Starocci. He wasn't going to back down. He stayed fighting. He did what he had to do. Like I said, he got that takedown, which nobody has ever been able to do this year on Carter till that point.
Even Kakaisen before the season.
Right, even Kakaisen. So for him, you look for him, he's on that bottom part of the bracket with Kakaisen. So does Kakaisen even get there? Does McAnally beat Kakaisen? It would be a matter of veteran versus rookie. You know, how does he respond to that and have the ability to he knows what he got with Carter just 2 weeks ago. He now has to maybe transition that against Kakaisen. So does he go and watch that NWCA match for Kakaisen and Starocci to kind of see what he can do with Kakaisen? Who knows? Every guy is different. But Kakaisen might not get there. We might get a Big Ten Finals rematch in the NCAA Finals comes Saturday night inside Philly.
Max McAnally just does not lose. That's why I didn't overlook him going into the Big Ten championship. I said on an initial preview that McAnally's going to give him everything he can handle, and it would not shock me if that goes to sudden victory. Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, it did, because McAnally was undefeated in his college career up until that point. So that just shows that how good he is, and he's going to be one of the faces of this 184-pound class moving forward. But that's besides the point. So Starocci is still our favorite to win and get a 5th NCAA title, but the expectations, the pressure, the rest of the competition is just going to try to disrupt history here by all means necessary. So when you carry that in against what Mitchell Mesenbrink and Tyler Kasak are going through, their paths are technically easier. I don't like using that word here for NCAA championships, but that's what Carter's dealing with, a lot more things than just, I have to defeat a wrestler and win an NCAA championship. This is unprecedented. This will never happen again.
Right. Yeah, and it's one of those things where, you know, people question it. Well, is he gonna come back this year? You know, Carter's a different animal. He likes to beat to his own drum. I'm not saying he's egotistical by no means. He's different when it comes to the wrestling scene. He's gonna speak what he wants to speak. If you don't like it, tough. He's gonna be himself, and it is what it is. But he's always kind of been like the idea of, well, hey, you know, I want to be the best possible. He wants to be an Olympic champion. He wants to be a world champion. He wants to do all these things. So there's two things he hasn't done yet. He hasn't gotten a Hodge Trophy yet. So he's trying to get that. So in order to get that, he's almost got to win another national title, because not very often do you see a guy that doesn't win a national title getting their Hodge Trophy. So he has that to try to encapsulate his entire collegiate wrestling career. But then this fifth title that will never be done again unless we have a pandemic again somewhere down the line or whatever, that who knows, nothing's out of the realm of possibilities. So, yes, there's a guy in Carlton Hasselrig who was a 6-time NCAA champion, but he won 3 titles at Division II, won 3 titles at Division I, because back in the day they would allow the Division II and 3 champions to come up in to wrestle in the D1 championships, and that's how that panned out. So he will be the first and more than likely ever 5-time NCAA champion. And like you said, all these other guys are going to be wanting to try to stop that from happening. All these other guys want to try to say, hey, look who I took. I took out Carter Starocci, the pound for pound top wrestler in the country.
And he's also going to have to fend off his own teammate for the Hodge Trophy and Mitchell Mesenbrink. So the Starocci's he's competing against tons, more than just enemies here in this case. Well, we mentioned Levi Haines. What about Luke Lilledahl? Could he win a title as a freshman? Well, 125 is the wild, wild west. We're going to get into all of that coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's episode is brought to you by Factor. Eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated. With Factor, you get chef-made, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, so you can fuel your body without the hassle of cooking. Factor meals arrive fresh, never frozen, and with 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week, you can customize your menu to fit your goals, whether that's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. It's the convenience that meets nutrition. Factor keeps you on track with healthy, delicious meals without the time-consuming prep. They have variety and taste, so you could try their Korean beef bowl or their creamy Parmesan chicken. These are some of the favorites out there, and they taste homemade and take no effort. And it's beyond just meals. Factor also offers smoothies, breakfasts, and snacks, so you always have something nutritious ready to go. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code FACTORPODCAST to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That is code FACTORPODCAST at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Today's episode is also brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts, that's right, 200,000 parts, from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Do you need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, or electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5. That's the letters SH and the number 5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. Levi Haines has Keegan O'Toole standing in his way. Dean Hamady as well. I don't think Dean Hamady should be looked past in that hypothetical semifinal if and when both of them get there. That's the expectation. Then we'll talk about Luke Lilledahl. Of course, there's still the other wrestlers, Beau Bartlett as well, that we're all going to address as that next group, is that they are capable of winning a national title, but there's not much that separates them. So beginning with Levi Haines, there's not much that separates Dean Hamady and Haines. I think that's a coin flip. I also think if and when, because I will predict that, I think that Haines wins against Hamady. There's not much that separates he and Keegan O'Toole. I mean, you could argue that call at the Journeyman Duels was not fair and should have went in Haynes' favor, and O'Toole doesn't have the takedown. Okay, whatever the case is, O'Toole still won. O'Toole also beat Hamady, so he's going to be the favorite here. But it's not like last year where Haines had that at 157, where it would be shocking if he does not win, where That's kind of the case here. It wouldn't shock me one way or another. If he wins, wouldn't be surprised. If he loses or doesn't win a championship and takes third place, wouldn't surprise me either way there.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that, we saw last year with Mesenbrink and Hamity in the Big Ten championships just how much Mitchell kind of, I would say, really broke Hamity down. Because there was a point where, you saw Mitchell, he got up and pointed at his chest during the match was still kind of getting the tail end of it being over. But, I think, with Levi, he just wrestled Lenny Pinto from Nebraska in the Big Ten finals, and he didn't really seem to have any problems with Pinto. And Pinto was pretty good in last year's NCAA championships. So I think that type of experience, obviously Levi has the experience he has from lower weight classes, but from what he has had this year, knowing that only loss he had has been against O'Toole, Hamity will present him a problem in the fact of just how lengthy Hamity is. He's a long guy. He's a very long guy. So where Haines is more compact, more built, where Hamity, he might be able to throw them legs in, and who knows? We'll see what kind of bottom game Levi would have. Saying those two get there, I don't see how they don't. I would think, like you said, I would be more surprised if Levi doesn't make the finals as opposed to either winning or losing in the finals, because again, we kind of see where him and O'Toole are kind of compared to the rest of the country and things like that, and how that panned out back on December the 22nd.
Luke Lilledahl's a 1 seed as we move to 125. And Lilledahl should be considered one of the favorites, but he's not the only one here. I think there are 9 legitimate wrestlers in this bracket that could win an NCAA championship. Oh, well, Zach, he beat Sheldon Seymour. He beat Caleb Smith of Nebraska twice. But did you notice how close those results were? As much as I want to give him more credence and say that, yeah, that proves everything that I need to know, it proves to me where Lilledahl is right now. But it's still a coin flip. That went down to the wire with Seymour. That went down to the wire twice with Caleb Smith. What gives me more confidence is the dominant victory over Matt Ramos to win by major decision and be in control from start to finish. But you don't get that every single time, unfortunately. So Lilledahl's not there yet. In due time, he will be. Next season, he is my favorite to win at 125. But just all the options that could win. So I've mentioned a few of them. Obviously, Ramos. Caleb Smith is a 9 seed, or Sheldon Seymour. Those two have to go through one another to get to Lilledahl. That's going to settle. The dust will settle and somebody's going to emerge. Oh, and there's also defending champion Richie Figueroa as a 5 seed. There's also Vincent Robinson of NC State as the 4 seed, one of which Lilledahl will meet in the semifinal, most likely, right? I expect him to get to the semifinal, but you got to knock off a former NCAA champion. And eventually, if you do get to the final, you could meet any Ventresca of Virginia Tech. You could meet Ramos again. I wouldn't count out Troy Spratley as a 7 seed. Jet Strickenberger, who defeated Spratley as a 6 seed at the Big 12 championships, pardon me. So this 125 class is loaded. It's kind of the same thing, the surprise factor. Out of any of those names, it doesn't surprise me if one of them ends up on top when everything's settled.
Yeah, and we look at last year, and not to really compare Braeden Davis and Luke Lilledahl, because they're two different wrestlers. But Davis went in as a 1 seed last year. If I'm not mistaken, he lost in the second round. I don't even think he made it to the quarterfinals. He didn't end up placing. And so does Lilledahl,
being a freshman,
being a freshman, does he have that mental capacity, that mental stamina to power through that and get through that? Now, granted, he did at the Big Tens. I mean, he wrestled, he was a 4 seed, but still he wrestled 4 matches, I think it was. So you got to get 5 to win the title here. Yep. So he did okay there at the Big Tens. Like I said, major Ramos in the semifinals, made it look pretty easy against Smith, if I can remember correctly.
Yeah.
I think he majored Smith in the finals of the Big Ten. So, when I look back over it, like he went pin, major, if I'm not mistaken, for his title run there in the Big Tens. So for him, it's going to be a matter of, does he get tripped up somewhere? Is it a Figueroa? Is it a Robinson in the semifinals? Is it a Seymour or Smith coming back trying to get revenge? If it's Smith, looking what he's done the past 2 times against Smith, I wouldn't have any problems. I don't have any problems with him making the semifinals with no problems, against Smith. Seymour, again, that was the beginning of the year. An 18-year-old kid, still wrestling, learning the college wrestling scene. Now he's got a lot more experience under his belt. Do I think it'll be as close as it was with Seymour as it was beginning of the year? I honestly don't think so. Because just the way he's wrestling now compared to where he was is different. But like you said, he has had some flub ups. He was up in that Ohio State match. He was winning, turned around and got pinned. Yeah. So what's going to happen? Does he get too much in his head, and does something happen where he turn around and just gets flipped over and gets put on his back and pinned? If it happens, the place is going to go nuts, because everybody was going nuts when Penn State guys were losing out in Illinois just 2 weeks ago.
I know. Because we'll get to Shayne Van Ness. I think Beau Bartlett and Shayne Van Ness are in a similar category here, and we'll get to them in just a moment. The difference between Lilledahl and Davis, just to give a tangible one, Lilledahl's a world champion. He's a former world champion at U20, and that's the pedigree that he came in with. Davis was a top-tier recruit, but did not have the same international presence that Lilledahl has had. And, I mean, he is used to it. He's used to these kinds of settings. So that, I think, it's more than just, the freshman inexperience. He has been here to an extent with Worlds. I think that benefits him there. So we still got to get to Beau Bartlett, Shayne Van Ness. Don't forget about Josh Barr, Braeden Davis, and Greg Kerkvliet. So as the odds shrink a little bit for these Penn State wrestlers, they're still title contenders, but what case do they have going into it? Well, we're going to pick back up with Beau Bartlett and Shayne Van Ness next, because they could get tripped up along the way if they're not careful. We'll tell you why coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. You can pick your favorites. If you've got your eye on a few underdogs or teams that you want to pick this year, FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. You stay in the action. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on, and it's easy and fast. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Again, that is FanDuel.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Beau Bartlett, Shayne Van Ness. You would like to think that they should be stronger title contenders. And like I said, we believe that they are, but the competition is stronger. I think these weight classes are a little deeper than people might have imagined, especially at 141. Because when Bartlett defeated Jesse Mendez in the regular season, it's like, okay, this is a different version of Beau Bartlett. He defeated Jesse Mendez again. But how that happened was after a loss to Vance Von Power. What I'm getting at is that 141 has expanded. Andrew Aliras didn't even win a Big 12 championship. He's an 8 seed here in this case. 141 is very similar to 125 to an extent. It's not as deep, but Brock Hardy's a 1 seed. I think Bartlett should have been the 1 seed, but whatever. Brock Hardy winning the Big 10 championship, that was enough for him, even though Bartlett defeated Hardy head-to-head. So be it, but Bartlett's your 2 seed. He's going to have to go through Jesse Mendez again. Can you beat the same wrestler 3 times in a season? That is tough. Now, Mendez technically did it with the Big Tens, NCAAs, and then the NWCA All-Star Classic. If you want to put it in a year-to-year time frame, as opposed to 1 season, it's still difficult to defeat. Notice how it was difficult to defeat Bartlett 4 times in a row. Eventually, he was going to get revenge, and he did. Mendez, because of the caliber wrestler he is going to get revenge at some point. Is it going to be in the semifinals here? I think that's Bartlett's biggest test here, but it's also taking Jamison as a 7 seed of Oklahoma State. That is no slouch as a 7 seed. So does Bartlett even get that semifinals rematch against Jesse Mendez?
Yeah. Depends on which Beau Bartlett shows up. Is it the Beau Bartlett that wrestled in the Ohio State duel? Or is it the Beau Bartlett that and the Beau Bartlett that opened the Big Ten championships? Or is it the Beau Bartlett that then went and wrestled real defensive in his quarterfinals, in his semifinals, where he ultimately lost in the semifinals, to then he come back and wrestled differently against Mendez in the third place match? I think that's what's gonna be the sticking point. Which Beau Bartlett is Penn State fans going to get to see in Philadelphia? It's his last go around. So is he going to go and lay it out on the line and go out there and fire off shots? Yeah, be risky, fire off shots, because we were at the final match of the year against American there, and we all kind of joked with him like, dude, you got 6 takedowns in the first period. Like, he goes, I don't think I've taken more than one shot ever in a match up until this point in his collegiate career.
I did like that line.
So it's like, okay, why aren't you using that same mentality? Like, why aren't you doing it? Because you've shown what you can go get after whatever you want, but you kind of shut down for some reason. Why? Who knows? We don't know. We're not inside his brain. So I think being it's his last go around, I think we're going to see a different Beau Bartlett. And,
I would hope.
And he's going to more than likely get Mendez in the semifinals. Can he beat Mendez again to make it to the finals? Who knows? Honestly, I don't know that we see Brock Hardy get to the finals.
No, I wouldn't think so. He's got to go through Andrew Alirez and Cal Happel.
Yeah, I see. I could see him, losing to Alirez, there in the quarterfinals.
That'd be my prediction. That's not even an upset.
No,
that's not even an upset to me.
No, because Alirez was number 1 most of the year when it comes to the Intermat rankings. Now Mendez jumped them there for a little bit because I think he was out. He was out hurt something, or he was out. It wasn't wrestling for a little bit, and then Bartlett beat Mendez. Well, there goes Bartlett up. Mendez dropped, and Alirez dropped down to 3. So I honestly don't know if Brock Hardy even gets to the finals. He probably don't get to the finals. He's probably going to lose. Like I said, quarterfinals. If he gets lucky, he makes it to the semifinals. Okay, then he has a shot. But I don't know. I don't know if he gets to the semifinals because of Alirez being there.
Bartlett could also have one of the widest range of outcomes as well, where he could place first. He could also place 7th. Because imagine if you lose earlier than anticipated to a Tegan Jameson, and then you match up with Brock Hardy in consolations or something like that, where it was close. I know you defeated him, but that was a last-second takedown, and Hardy's defeated you in other seasons. So it's a coin flip with a lot of these other matchups. Let's go to 149. Shayne Van Ness, I think, is in a similar tier here with Beau Bartlett, is that, you could win. You could win an NCAA title. You could also finish 5th. Or who knows, right? I'm not going to overlook that matchup with Lachlan McNeil in the quarterfinal, most likely, the North Carolina wrestler. You're also going to have to eventually, yes. Now, the expectation is that Van Ness gets to the semifinal and then wrestles Ridge Lovett. Most people are going to pick Ridge Lovett and Caleb Henson to be the championship bout there. So Shayne Van Ness, it's kind of the same thing where Bartlett has to go through Jesse Mendez. Van Ness has to go through Ridge Lovett, somebody that he's struggled with.
Right. And you said about McNeil, people kind of forget the 11 seed there in Sammy Alvarez at Ryder. He was at Rutgers, wrestled at Rutgers for a couple years. He was a pretty good hammer at 41 for a couple years there when he was at Rutgers. He had some injuries that kind of side railed him. Whenever he's at Ryder now, so Alvarez may make it to the quarterfinals and might beat McNeil from North Carolina. Don't know. Depends. We don't know what kind of Sammy Alvarez is.
But it's closer than most people are going to expect.
Right, exactly. So, when you look at that, that's a possibility there. I don't like Van Ness's draw at all. It's not good because, okay, great. If he makes it to the semifinals, okay, does he get Lovett? Sure, he could get Lovett. But what happens if Cannon Webster goes and pulls what he did against Van Ness on Lovett at Big Tens? He pulls it off on Lovett in the NCAAs, and then
he could. It was 1-0.
Van Ness gets Webster in the semifinals. What happens? What happens if they, Webster could come in and get into the finals as a 7 seed? Who knows? It's just one of those things, like you said, the variety of where he could finish, just like Bartlett could be 1, could be the whole way down to 7, could be 8. He might not place at all. I don't foresee that happening, but it's one of those things where his draw with Alvarez there, McNeil there, Webster there, Lovett down there. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
So now let's move to Josh Barr, because we still got to get to Greg Kerkvliet and Braeden Davis in this conversation as well in a timely manner, right? So Josh Barr is difficult to project here because a 110% Josh Barr can win an NCAA title is more likely to. It's so difficult to project because what is it a hamstring injury? Is it a knee injury? It sounds like it's a hamstring injury from everybody that I've spoken with. But initially, okay, was it a knee injury? Was it a ligament? Now it's a hamstring. And Cale Sanderson gave a vote of confidence on Thursday during the Penn State coaches show that Barr's fine. He's good to go. He's ready to scrap. Okay. But that still doesn't answer. Is he 70%? Is he 80%? Is he 90%? Is he as close to 100% as possible? And I guess the same thing applies to Braeden Davis too, technically. But Josh Barr in this case is more likely. Even a Josh Barr at 80% is still someone that I see making the semifinals, but I would not be as confident going up against Jacob Cardenas. So you need tiebreaker to defeat Cardenas the first time. You lose to him in sudden victory because you just make an inexperienced mistake. That's the difference that separates Cardenas and Barr. It's the experience. It's the knowledge. Barr's a first-year starter. He's a rookie in his own right. Cardenas has been doing this for quite some time. He was my pick at Big Tens to win. I thought he was going to defeat Buchanan. He did. Same thing. Not much changes here going into NCAAs. I like Cardenas to win an NCAA title. So if Barr had to go through maybe AJ Ferrari, it's a little different. But still, when you're injured now, it just changes everything.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the fact that his second round match is Trey Munoz from Oregon State.
I know.
That's a tough one there, especially if he's not at a good percentage as far as his health goes to, get past that. We don't know. We're not going to know until Thursday morning in Philly whether or not what Josh Barr is going to be wrestling, because until we can see if he can put pressure off that leg, if he can move forward off that leg, who knows? Like, did
His
they
game
maybe
changes completely?
Yeah, right. Did they have to teach him how to go off the other leg now, go get a different stance than what he's used to standing, with his stance, because he can't put pressure off that leg. They can be able to, go in for shots and jump in for shots. You look at it, okay, great. He gets by Munoz. He's going to get Beard or Stephen Little.
I think it's Stephen Little. That's the one I have circled because it was 4-1 in sudden victory the last time they wrestled. Stephen Little is not a 12 seed. I have no idea why he's there.
Right. And so, he's beaten both of them. He beat Beard pretty good. He beat Little. He edged Little. At the collegiate duels there, December. So, again, he was fully healthy at that time.
Yeah. Both
of those matches. Now you come up to the point now where, again, don't know what the injury is. It sounded like his hamstring. Again, can he push off? How is he going to react? How can he do that? I don't know. We're not going to know till, like I said, Thursday morning. Do we see how he wrestles in that first match? And even then, we might not get a full glimpse because he's wrestling a guy from Lock Haven. Nothing against Lock Haven. They don't wrestle as good of a schedule as Penn State does. Tucker Hogan, I know he had a very good high school career. He was from Pennsylvania. So he's I know what type of wrestler he is.
Yeah.
Barr is a different level, but Barr is not full health Barr. So we'll see. We'll know for sure come Thursday morning what type of Barr there's going to be.
Move to heavyweight because Greg Kerkvliet, I mean, as the number 2 wrestler, he's an NCAA champion again, if not for Gable Steveson coming back for one final ride off into the sunset. So be it. As much as I want to do mental gymnastics to convince myself that Kerkvliet can defeat Steveson in a rematch here, the only possibility is winning 2-1. You do not give up any takedowns. You're not going to get any takedowns against Steveson. So let's just put it out there that there is a blueprint because Steveson has minimized the amount of ways that somebody can defeat him. The only way that you win is you do not get a takedown, you do not give up one, and somehow you win riding time. You win the riding time point. Greg Kerkvliet is the only one capable of that, but just because you're capable doesn't mean that you do it. So Steveson has one of the lowest odds to win a national title because Steveson's just the giant that is not going to be top tier at this present moment. I think he beats Wyatt Hendrickson, and it turns out Wyatt Hendrickson is hurt. He injured his wrist at Big 12. So for anybody that doesn't know about that, just gives more in the matchup of Hendrickson and Kerkvliet. That's going to matter. And I think Kerkvliet makes it to the NCAA championship, no issues. but does not win. That's where all the issues are at the end of the road there.
Yeah, and it's like when they were wrestling in the finals there at Big Tens, it was just like, where was the Greg Kerkvliet from this entire year at? It was like he was wrestling not to lose. And granted, it could just be because of Gable Stevenson and just how good he is. Just some of the counters that he had to Kerkvliet, and Greg couldn't get to anything. It was just like mind-boggling to see the number one guy and the number two guy in the country kind of look like Mesenbrink and Caliendo in the Iowa Duel. Stevenson was just playing with his prey, and it didn't matter. He wasn't getting taken down, so that's why I think he took neutral in the third period, because he had the lead that he had, and he knew it wasn't going to get taken down. So what's the sense of going down, worrying about trying to get out? If you couldn't get out, what's it make a difference? You already have such a large lead. You can play around with that a little bit, but again, he's just so technically sound that he could take neutral there and not be afraid.
Yeah, that's the hope, but it's so tough to score. Yeah, and it's so tough to score on Stevenson as it is. So that's why his odds are almost net zero. But getting there gives you a better chance, right, of winning an NCAA title just by being there by proxy. Finishing up with Davis, we've already kind of passively previewed Davis and the fact that he's an 8 seed. Okay, if he gets to the quarterfinal, it's not guaranteed there. You got to beat Braxton Brown again. You barely did 9-7 in the Big Ten tournament, but at least you have something. But as we've seen with Davis, previous results do not matter as much, because he defeated Dylan Shaver. He defeated Nick Bazakis and then turns around and loses to both of them and did not look good against them. He looked better 75% than he did closer to 100% in the rematch against them. Yeah. I don't know how to necessarily explain it. I don't know that Davis gets by Braxton Brown. The odds of upsetting Lucas Bird, whether you're 70 to 100, whether you're as close to 100% as possible, is not good. I think Davis is going to have to find some confidence, another bit of motivation when he gets down to consolations here, but he has the lowest chances of winning an NCAA title here, unfortunately.
Yeah, and, with that Brown match in the Big Tens, Davis was in control the entire time.
Looked at.
Then he just kind of, in the third period there, Brown put him to his back a couple times, and that's kind of what made it closer than what the score really was. But, Davis hung on for that win. So really it's why did he end up getting that way in the third period? Was he tired? Don't know. Was it just a matter of Brown had nothing more to go with, so he had to risk it all, and he just threw what he could throw, and he got lucky and got some points from near fall and things like that. Who knows? But to be able to have that maybe Thursday night, will maybe allow Davis maybe to, okay, hey, he gets that win, puts that baby to rest, and then he focuses on Bird, because that was a bad beatdown that he took in that Illinois match. So what type of mental fortitude will he have should he get past Brown, knowing he's got Bird next? We'll see. But again, like you said, when it comes to him and Greg, they're kind of in a tier by themselves, because Greg will get to the finals more than likely, but Davis, he's got work to do if he's going to get there.
And that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. He is Nate Cobler over on the other side, Center Daily Times beat reporter covering Penn State wrestling for 9 years. Links to his work will be down in the description. I encourage all of you to check them out. I also encourage you to leave your comments, your predictions for Penn State's NCAA finalists and how many champions they will have this time around. If you're not already, become an everyday or subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast to stay up to date with the latest conversations around Penn State wrestling. Nate, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it and can't wait to catch up again soon.
Sounds good, buddy. Thanks for having me.
And thank you again for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. For your second listen and watch, got to check out Locked On College Basketball with hosts Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here, so be the most informed college basketball fan throughout all of the madness. You can find Locked On College Basketball available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.